Deputy Assistant Attorney General John Yoo and former federal prosecutor Joe Moreno. And I think to you first, John, it's a thing that Jim points out there that, you got Michael Cohen, who really is not a good witness. He's got a history of lying. He's a convicted felon. So this is not the guy that you want to ride into town on the bandwagon with.
This is a seriously flawed prosecution. Even if it weren't the first test case where we were going to break a 230-year tradition in this country to leave ex-presidents alone because we want them to make tough decisions. But as you just pointed out, Trace, this case has serious factual problems. The star witness is a convicted federal felon who has told conflicting stories. And then even if you believed what he was saying, it's still not clear that this is a violation of law. It's not illegal to have a non-disclosure agreement and pay someone for it. Instead, Alvin Bragg has tried to gin up a misdemeanor into a felony by using federal law, which he's not allowed to prosecute. I think Trump has got a lot of legal and factual issues on his side here.
This is up your alley, Joe. What do you think? What are the odds of this going into a court and a judge just dismissing it outright?
Trace, I miscalled this. Even just days ago, I thought this was pure political theater and it would never actually go to an indictment. I thought Alvin Bragg was basically bluffing. Well, I was wrong about that. And honestly, I hope I'm wrong about the case, too. I hope this case is fantastic. I hope that there are solid charges with a solid prosecution theory within the statute of limitations, because if not, then this is a catastrophe. If this case is as weak as we all think it is, and it probably is, that means, like Professor Yu said, the system is turned on its head, and we are using a stale, weak, highly questionable case to basically persecute a political opponent. No one should be happy about that situation.
And it's interesting you say that, because Politico kind of went down that lane, Joe, and I want to pose this to John. Politico writes the following: Trump seems to be the victim of a witch hunt. So what? Going on to say it's hard to believe prosecutors would bring this case against anyone else, but that doesn't mean they're wrong. Sometimes even Donald Trump has a point. This time it's his claim that he has been singled out by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office for conduct that would probably not have been charged as a crime against anyone else. The theme here is, it's political, so suck it up. That doesn't seem to be the American way. John?
Of course, every prosecution requires the prosecutor to consider the public interest, to consider fairness, to consider due process. You are not supposed to single out the person. You're supposed to try to enforce the law fairly. Right. Suppose you still thought Donald Trump was guilty of something. This is not the crime to investigate him for. Maybe he was responsible for January 6th in some way. There's a special counsel looking into that. Maybe he did monkey around with classified information in violation of federal law. There's another special counsel investigation looking into that. But if you're going to start out with this weak case on poor facts with really twisted law that I expect the higher courts will reverse, then actually Bragg is undermining all the other investigations because he's so politically biased. It will color all the other prosecutors, all the other cases, and that will undermine the rule of law.
You earlier said, Joe, that you thought, you hope this is a substantial case, that it is a good case because it doesn't ruin, the rule of law. What if there's no smoking gun? Because as we have seen the leaks, and Jim Trusty talked about the leaks earlier, there have been leaks. We don't have a smoking gun. There's no document that we know of that shows that Donald Trump was falsifying any information.
Trace, if this truly is a nearly 7-year-old case that was passed on by federal prosecutors, that was passed on by regulators, and that relies on the testimony of a convicted perjurer, if it's that bad, then all we will get from this is most likely Donald Trump will walk, and the public will just continue to lose confidence in the legal system. And as has been pointed out in that Quinnipiac poll, 2/3 of people already think this is political. That number will only get worse. It's a sad day for the country, and it's a sad day as an attorney. I am scared for my profession.
Yeah, and we should point out, you go back to Alvin Bragg when he was running for this office, and he pointed out a number of times he was going to go after Trump. John Yoo, Joe Moreno, thank you both.
Thanks,
Trace.
And now we go from legal analysis